Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Nerdvana. In today's episode, I shall be discussing season 1 of Doctor Who, or season 14, if you prefer, or Ncuti Gatwa's first season as the Doctor. I shall first be reviewing Space Babies, season 1, episode 1. To start with the positives, I think that the Doctor and Ruby had some really great chemistry. I like that so far it seems like we aren't going down a romantic angle. It just seems like the Doctor and Ruby are best mates. And I think it's quite obvious that they are friends in real life as well. And that really shines through in the episode. So, yeah, very happy with that. I was a bit unsure on Ruby at first. Shooter, I always thought would be a great Doctor. But after Church on Ruby Road, there wasn't anything that really drew me towards Ruby. However, in that episode, she seems to have a bit more agency. I thought she was very likable. Came across as quite intelligent as well, being able to help deduce the Doctor with the answers. Um, yeah, all around really likable. So I'm quite pleased with Ruby's character progression so far. I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. The concept of space babies, I think, is also a really, really interesting idea. This idea of there being a baby farm, which is now run by the babies themselves because it's been abandoned by the adults. That's the type of high concept sci-fi which I come to Doctor Who for, which is why I tend to enjoy Stephen Moffat's era for those really out there ideas. I also thought it was really adorable when the babies thought that the Doctor and Ruby were their parents. That was really cute, and I think the idea that they were so excited by a hug because they'd never seen one or had one, rather, uh, was just precious. Really, really precious. As for Shooty as a doctor, yep, really, really good. I enjoyed his performance in Church on Ruby Road, and he continues to impress me. Would I say he's a favourite doctor at the moment? No, not really, but I like his energy. I like his personality. And I feel like this episode in particular really captured all the core aspects of the Doctor. You had uh, the whimsy, you had the energy, but you also had that underlying darkness, which comes from him discovering that he was an orphan after the time as a child. And that's another point which I'd like to raise as well, is that I feel like Russell T Davies has taken the timeless child and made it into something a lot more interesting. He sort of taken the concept and done his own Russell T Davies spin on it by focusing on the emotional impact of being a quote unquote foundling. And I feel like this is going to play throughout, at the very least, his first season, and will be this extra connection that him and Ruby has. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. I think this episode was really great at setting up a lot of the mysteries. We see points where it seems like time is really in flux and it's sort of seeping into the present day, or at least the part of the narrative that's set in the present. In fact, we see a scene where there's snow in the TARDIS, which got me really excited to see where Russell T Davies is going to take the series in terms of time travel. I think this will be a bit of a Marmite season. I think some people will be really down with the supernatural elements and the messing around with time. But I think it may put some other people off. But so far, it's working for me. Now that's the good out the way. There were some negatives. In fact, quite a few negatives. My first point is that I find that the editing was quite choppy. Some very strange decisions being made, and my friend who I was watching with described it as feeling very TikToky, in the sense that it almost seems like he didn't trust the audience to be able to keep up with the narrative. So he very much fitted all the information right at the beginning of the episode. Who's the doctor? How does time travel work? TARDIS, etc., etc. as if he didn't think the audience would be able to wait a whole episode or two before getting all of the details. I also feel like there were a lot of moments within the story which were done simply for making TikTok reels. Very short, sharp, um, quirky dialogue, which I think that is being aimed towards the millennial generation. I don't know whether I can really blame Russell T Davies for that. That might just be the way that TV shows are going now, where they try to make things as big and loud and as quick as they can because all of our brains have been turned to mush from social media. But either way, I didn't necessarily like it. And linked to that point was his overuse of exposition to explain the concepts of the show. I understand that in the first episode, you need to give people an understanding of the show itself. However, I feel like Russell has been able to do that a lot better in previous series. Take, for example, the beginning of the revival era. From my memory, I felt like Rose, the episode, not the character, stuck to the very main basic points you need: alien, time travel, silly monsters. Whereas with this, I felt like they tried to fit it all in within the first 15 minutes, and I think that the story did suffer because of that. And I also noted that there were quite a few scenes which almost seemed like a shot for shot recreation of some of RTD's earlier works. Take, for example, there was a scene with Ruby looking out at the Earth. Well, that could have easily been Rose and Christopher Eccleston in The End of the World. So I found that a little bit lazy. In my opinion, I think this is probably an episode he came to last and was one that he was the least thrilled about writing. It almost seemed like he's got a lot of other ideas that he wants to do, but he needed to create an opening to just chuck the very basic run of the mill story out just to start the series. That brings me to my next point that I don't think this was the best series opener. Um, I think it was very run of the mill, which can be good. You don't want to put people off too quickly with really out there concepts. However, some friends who had recently got back into Doctor who I was watching this with, said that if we hadn't been watching The Devil's Chord straight afterwards, they probably wouldn't have continued watching the show, which does worry me because you really want to hook people in with your first episode, keep them coming back, and which is why I think that they put both episodes back to back. I'm just speculating, but maybe Disney didn't have the confidence in the first episode, but saw The Devil's Chord as being something to really hook people in afterwards, and therefore put both episodes out one after the other. Let's see what else is in my notes here. I think that really sums it up. So I guess overall, Space Babies, it's not the worst Doctor Who by any stretch of the imagination, and it's certainly not the best. In general, though, I would say that despite my criticisms, I rather enjoyed the episode. It was light, it was exciting, and you know what? That's something I've missed with Doctor Who. I think it's been a while since I was really excited about an episode and just had fun with it. And I was able to do this with this episode, so for that, I'm actually quite grateful. Ooh, before I forget, I should note that what I did enjoy was that the political elements were very toned down in this episode. I'm someone who really is not interested in the politics within Doctor Who, and I try to stay away from that. I understand the show has always had it, but I'm kind of getting a bit sick of people placing their political views into TV shows. And I don't necessarily blame Doctor Who, I think it's something that's happening with all TV shows. And therefore, when I come to watch Doctor Who, I think I get a little bit annoyed at it because I'm seeing it wherever I go. Plus, just as a fan, I usually enjoy the other elements of Doctor Who rather than the political messaging. Like I said, the high concept sci fi, big space epics, the fantasy elements. Those are the things I come to Doctor Who for, the escapism rather than the um, hard political sci-fi. But who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe I'll enjoy what Russell Tears has to say, or maybe by the end of it, I will hate it and feel like I'm having a lecture. Moving on to episode 2. This was a big step up, in my opinion. A lot better than Space Babies. And really, I think this one should have been the opening episode. I think that it would have left a better taste in a lot of people's mouth than Space Babies did. So to start with the positives again, the villain was absolutely brilliant. And I'm actually surprised that I say that because I'm someone who doesn't really enjoy drag. I respect it as a art form and I get why people like it, but it's just not my cup of tea. However, Jinx Monsoon as a maestro was really, really good. She was just the right level of camp without taking it too over the top, and she was actually quite intimidating. And I think that has to do with a lot of Russell T Davis's writing. You really get the sense that she is this otherworldly being. There's this uncanny valley effect to the way that she speaks and moves, and just the concept of her as well is amazing. Being a god or a goddess of music. Yep, absolutely love that idea. And I think Russell's very good at showing how powerful she is by making the Doctor afraid of her. It seems like recently we don't really have the Doctor being afraid of anything, and that's quite good. It's good, nice to have a brave hero and unflappable, unflappable, unflappable. Ugh. However, it is nice to see the Doctor really outmatched and quite fearful. It really shows her as a threat to be reckoned with, and I hope we see a bit more of that, particularly whilst the Doctor is facing a lot of new supernatural threats. Linked to Maestro herself, I thought the costumes all around were really good. The pacing was a lot better, and Shooty does continue to impress me. Um, this was a very, I think, cool, slightly camp vibe, which I think I gel with quite a lot, but I think some other people may not. Were a bit more exposition heavy. However, they were handled a lot better than Space Babies. When the Doctor explains about him having a granddaughter, that's done in a lot more natural way than some of the dialogue that was in Space Babies. And slightly linked to that point, that scene with the Doctor on the roof looking over the city uh, was brilliant. I really liked the directing, the use of music. It was a lot slower, and it seemed like Russell Davies had more confidence that people would be able to sit through that slower moment, which is good to see. And I hope we do see more of it because Russell, we can have 5 minutes of just calm before the storm, so to speak. There were some negatives, however. No Doctor Who episode is perfect. My biggest criticism is that it felt like this episode was advertised as a musical. However, I don't think they really fully committed to that concept. If you're going to do a musical, then have music throughout. And if not, then don't advertise it that way. It felt like they only committed to the concept right at the end when there was that little 2 minute song and dance number, which I actively really did not like. I felt like if you're going to do it all the way through, or don't do it at all. Having said that, I can understand that the whole point is that Maestro is taking away the music, so it wouldn't really make sense for him to be singing and dancing everywhere. But if that's what's going to happen, then don't make it a musical episode, or at least advertise it that way. I also think that the Beatles actors did not look like the Beatles at all, but that's a bit of a that's me nitpicking, really. but that's another thing that I noticed. The sonic screwdriver as well seems to be almost a magic wand. Can't blame Russell for this really though. This is something that's been going on for a while in Who. With that said, despite not liking the fact that the sonic screwdriver can almost do anything, I think using it in the scene, which led to all sound being removed, led to a really, really interesting scene. So even though I don't like that the sonic driver can do that, I think that the scene it created because of it was really fun and interesting. Again, another example of really great directing, I think. Another critique I have was that it felt like the Doctor didn't really save the day. Now, again, I can understand why. It makes more sense for John Lennon and Paul McCartney to be the ones to save the day. However, if you're trying to sell Shooty as a hero for the new generation, it kind of feels like you need him to be a bit more involved. Yes, admittedly, he did sort of start the song that led to Maestro being defeated, but it was really John and George. No, George? No, Paul, sorry. No, not George. Who really saved the day. I can see some people having a bit of a fit about that, to be honest with you. And the fandom is toxic enough as it is. So, yeah. Maybe if we'd seen him do a bit more before this, if there'd been a few more episodes before where he'd gone and saved the day, it wouldn't be much of a big deal. But for now, I can see people having a problem with the day being saved by the Beatles rather than by our main character. With that said, again, though, I think this was a lot better. I probably give this a 7 out of 10. Some final thoughts. Really great to set up the mystery. And in particular, I think this episode really helps the giggle from the 60th anniversary because it makes note and references the fact that the Toymaker was defeated quite easily with a game of catch. Shooty, the Doctor, mentions that it was almost luck and he wouldn't be able to do that again. And that really recontextualizes the giggle and I think makes it a lot better watch. Because one criticism I did have of that was it seemed very easy to defeat the Toymaker in the end. But I'm off on a tangent now, anyways. Overall, I'm still really excited for the season. Um, I don't think it's fully firing all cylinders yet, but there is a lot to be excited for. I'm really down with the vibe, the supernatural elements I'm here for, the mystery, particularly the one who waits. I cannot wait to find out who or what that is going to be. So I'm just happy to be excited about Doctor Who again. With that said, I'd love to know what you guys think. Please tell me that I'm a fascist for not absolutely loving it, or alternatively, say that I am a cuck shill for even liking some of it. Um, like I said, please let me know what you think. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you'll join me in the next episode where I shall be reviewing Stephen Moffat's contribution to the new season. Doctor Who, boom. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.